On the night of our first ever Locked On Kings watch party, the Sacramento Kings did me a solid going down to LA and beating the Lakers 125-110. Another wire-to-wire victory for Sacramento, their fourth straight, and they do it behind three nearly 30-point performances from three different starters. We're breaking it all down right here for you on Locked On Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily Sacramento Kings podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is that time. Time for another episode of Locked On Kings.
Hello and welcome into Locked On Kings, your podcast hub for Sacramento Kings coverage all season long. My name is Matt George. I have the privilege of being your host here. I'm a Sacramento sports anchor and reporter for ABC 10 News. And before we talk about tonight's game, I am absolutely buzzing tonight. One of the best nights of my career, being able to do something that I've never done before, which is put on an event sponsored by the Locked On Kings podcast here at Sac Yard Community Tap House, which is an amazing place to come and watch a Kings game, to come get a beer with your friends after work or during a weekend. There's just a phenomenal place to come, and they were nice enough not only to partner with me here this season, but to allow us to host this event, and I was just blown away by the amount of Sacramento Kings fans, the amount of Locked On Kings listeners, all of you that decided to come out here and watch the Kings game with me. Yes, we also had some Laker fans in attendance, including my barber, who's a diehard Laker fan, but I can't really tell him to not be one or tell him or talk crap to him very much because he holds a razor blade in my throat, if you know what I mean. But it was a great event, a great night, fun energy, and ultimately a Sacramento Kings win at the end of it, a Sacramento Kings win over the Los Angeles Lakers at the end of that. Oh yeah, I will take that any day of the week. 125-110 the final score. Kings win by 15 points. At one point, we're up by 26 in this game. And I can't wait to break this one down because we got to talk about a different Sacramento Big Three tonight. Now, two of them are familiar. One of them has been on a tear as of late, and we are all so excited to see how well Kevin Huerter is playing. Huerter tonight, 28 points, 10 of 16 from the field, 6 of 11 from three-point range, 7 assists, 4 rebounds. Red Velvet is back. Like, this slump is over. He's worked his way through it, and I talked a lot about this after the Kings win over the Cleveland Cavaliers on Monday, so I'm not going to reiterate and rehash too much, but here is Kevin finally working his way out of the slump. He went through it to get to this point, right? Immense shooting struggles. I know it was during the preseason, but still losing his starting spot at one point to Chris Duarte and having that questioning his ability to play the defense and provide the rebounding that Mike Brown expects out of his position, in addition to being that scorer, and whether or not you'd have to choose one or the other. Kevin went through it to get to this point. So not only to see him succeed, but to also have him continue to do the things that he did well while he was in that shooting slump. I'm talking about rebounds. I'm talking about assists. I'm talking about playing physical defense. This is the best version of Kevin Huerter we have ever seen in his career right now. And it's not just because he's raining threes like we know he can. When Red Velvet gets hot, look out everybody else in the league, right? It's not just that. It's the fact that he's doing the other things that Mike Brown asked of him. If you're Mike Brown, and you're watching Kevin Huerter play, it's hard to really ask for any more. Sure, there might be problems or issues every once in a while on the defensive end, like he's not going to be the perfect player. You'd love him to every shot he puts up, grab every rebound that comes his way. But to get this kind of production out of your two guard whose primary skill is shooting, and that skill is just now starting to pick up while the other non-primary skills that you've been asking of him have been solid for the last couple of weeks, that is a big deal for Sacramento, and I'm so happy for Kevin Huerter. I am enjoying watching him finally get that shot to fall. It looks like he's having a lot of fun out there, and if this is the Kevin Huerter that the Sacramento Kings can count on all this season and going into the playoffs, yeah, this is a very dangerous Sacramento Kings team. Even with 28 points, he wasn't the leading scorer. De'Aaron Fox also had 28 points in tonight's game. He took 22 shots to get it, went 10 of 22 from the field, but I was very happy to see an aggressive, attack-minded De'Aaron Fox from the get-go. A lot of what we talked about coming into this season was Hey, we know how good fourth quarter Fox is, right? Clutch player of the year, crunch time Fox. There was literally nobody better with the game on the line. And we'd see De'Aaron score 30 points, flirt with 40 points last season, and 20 or 25 of those points would come in the fourth quarter alone. He was unbelievable in the fourth quarter. But how good can he be, and what kind of numbers can he put up scoring-wise if he brought 15 points with him into the fourth quarter and then exploded like he normally does? Well, for the most part this season, De'Aaron Fox has been scoring all 4 quarters. He's come out aggressive to start the game, set the tone, established himself. He's also done a really, really good job of knowing, hey, this is now the time for me to get my teammates involved. Let me establish myself early. Defenses are reacting to me. Defenses are focused on me. There's Kevin Huerter for an open 3. There's Keegan Murray for an open 3. Here's Domas to run the DHO game without the pressure that he was facing in the games that Fox was out or during the playoffs. Like, De'Aaron is doing a masterful job of making his impact on the game and having that linger. He can explode at any given time, but having that linger throughout the game so that his teammates can benefit from it. But once again, De'Aaron Fox, not the leading scorer for the Sacramento Kings tonight. It was Domantas Sabonis who went in and dominated the Lakers tonight. 29 points, 16 rebounds, 7 assists. You talk about someone who was ready to go from the get-go. Domas took the floor in this first half and said, I am going to do whatever I want. I know you got Anthony Davis over there, future Hall of Famer, superstar center, gets all the credit, is above me in almost every single NBA center tier out there. Well, I'm going to show the people who are making those tiers that maybe they should put me on the same tier, or at least for a night, I'm going to be above him. And tonight, it was not close. Anthony Davis was really bad tonight. We'll talk about his numbers a little bit later on in the podcast. But here you have Domantas Sabonis. Again, I talked about this after the win over the Cleveland Cavaliers. Someone who was dragged all summer long. People questioning whether or not he can, or if he actually is an All-NBA center, or if that was a fluke season because the Kings were good and they were just giving him that award because they had to give the Kings something for how amazing they, or how great their turnaround was. They saw him play in the playoffs and thought, oh, you can't win with this guy. He's not nearly as good as his numbers during the regular season suggested. He heard that, listened to that, read that all off-season long. And now it's crickets. Nobody is saying a thing. Why? Because Domantas Sabonis is dominating. And here on national television against the Los Angeles Lakers, where he knows everybody is watching, he said, pay attention to this. Write about this. Talk about this. Now, I don't know if they're going to. I don't know if people are going to walk back some of the dumb things that they said about Sabonis this offseason. I'm sure they'll come up with excuse after excuse of, I need to see more. Man, that was only 1 game or 2 games. He needs to do that throughout the course of the season and then into the playoffs. Whatever excuse they want to come up with is fine. We know how good Domantas Sabonis is. We know who Domantas Sabonis is. And tonight, he reminded the Lakers who Domantas Sabonis is. So a big 3 from a less likely 3 than usual. Typically, we think Kings big 3. We think Fox, Sabonis, and Keegan Murray. Well, Keegan struggled a bit tonight, but I'm not mad at his struggles. I'm also going to share some love for Harrison Barnes later on in this podcast. But how great was it to see another coast-to-coast victory for the Sacramento Kings? 4 straight is great. And think about how this 4-game win streak started. It started with an overtime win against the Portland Trailblazers team after the Kings got their ass kicked twice in Houston, right? So they come back home. They get a win under their belt, and I told you at that point, hey, get a win by any means necessary. I was still concerned about the Kings' offense after that game because there were a lot of points in that Portland win that I thought, hey, Sacramento might actually lose this game. And I had a long line of Kings fans that were ready to hit the panic button if Sacramento dropped that game. But they didn't. They got back in the win column. They got through that funk. Then they had that great defensive performance with De'Aaron Fox out against OKC. In these past 2 games, offense has come alive. De'Aaron Fox being back, of course, has a major impact on that, and the Kings have taken control early and led the entire time. There was a bit of a lapse in the fourth quarter. Fourth quarter got a bit rocky. The Kings had their lowest scoring quarter. They gave up over 30 points for the Lakers in that fourth quarter. Really, it was the LeBron James show. LeBron James took over tonight. He was amazing. 28 points, 9 of 15 from the field. Unbelievable efficiency. 11 assists, 10 rebounds. Also had 4 steals, but did turn the ball over 6 times. Sacramento did amazing at turning the Lakers over, and that was a big reason for why they won this game. I'll go over that and some other winning numbers here in the next segment. But 38 points in the first quarter. Sacramento comes out of the gate and sets the tone just like they did against the Cleveland Cavaliers. They take control, And then you have the 25-point first quarter that you held the Lakers to, and then a 21-point third quarter that you held the Lakers to. That's a big deal for the Sacramento Kings. Don't let that slide under the radar, right? The first and third quarters for the Sacramento Kings, those I call them restart quarters, right? The first quarter is obviously the start of the game. The third quarter is the restart. After the break, when the Lakers can go into the locker room and regroup and make adjustments, Sacramento comes back out and defensively holds the Lakers to their lowest scoring quarter of the game with just 21 in that third quarter. That's a big difference for the Sacramento Kings. Add that to the long list of reasons why Sacramento won this game. I'll walk you through some of their winning numbers here in just a little bit. Plus, we have to talk about Keegan Murray. Got to talk about Harrison Barnes. Once again, Davion Mitchell did not play in tonight's game. We'll touch on that as well. Still a lot to get to here on the Locked On Kings podcast. Our partners at eBay Motors have teamed up with Locked On Fantasy Basketball host Josh Lloyd to bring you some of the best fantasy picks each week, all season long, whether you're prepping for a daily draft or scouting the waiver wire every single week. We're going to provide you with players that are guaranteed to fit on your roster. So let's see who Josh has picked for our this week's eBay Guaranteed Fit Fantasy Picks of the week. The 5 names: Bilal Coulibaly, Skylar Mays, Jacob Gilliard, Kyle Lowry, and Keontae George. There's a couple names that I want to talk about really, really quickly. The first one is Skylar Mays. This is someone who I knew very little about until he came into Sacramento and torched the Kings last week. Skylar Mays had a really, really good game against Sacramento. Now, we know the Kings unfortunately have a tendency to give career nights to obscure guys every once in a while. They've certainly done a better job of limiting that over the last couple seasons compared to the 16-year playoff drought where a guy would come in that we'd have no idea who they are and they'd look like prime Magic Johnson or prime LeBron James. Yeah, that hasn't been the case as much this year, but Skylar Mays came in, was really impressed, not just with his shooting ability, but his ability to attack the basket, and he showed that he can score in bunches, and that scoring can be a major difference maker for you with those surprise and sneaky picks in fantasy. The other one is Kyle Lowry. This is a guy, former All-Star, has kind of fallen from grace a little bit. But with the injury to Tyler Hero, he's gotten a lot of minutes, a lot of opportunity, and he can still fill it up. He's a guy that can explode offensively too. 2 guys that can put up a lot of points and can make that can be all the difference in your fantasy battles each week. Josh Lloyd from Locked On Fantasy Basketball is going to help you win your fantasy basketball and or your fantasy championship, I should say. And eBay Motors knows a championship team is about each player being a perfect fit. Same thing with your vehicle. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you can make sure that your ride stays running smoothly. You can get brake kits, LED headlights, roof rack, bumpers, whatever your baby needs, eBay Motors has it. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, it's guaranteed to fit your ride the first time, every time, or you get your money back. Plus, with these prices, you're going to be burning rubber, not burning cash. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers, eligible items only, exclusions apply. Part of me wants to take this box score for the Sacramento Kings tonight and just hang it in an art gallery because there's so much about this box score that is just beautiful, right? You got 3 players in the starting lineup nearly scoring 30 points. You have 4 of your 5 starters reaching double digits. The 5th one was not bad. He didn't reach double digits in Keegan Murray, but he did not have a bad game. We'll talk about that in a second. I know the bench wasn't great, but here are just a list of winning numbers that if the Sacramento Kings can do a handful of these consistently every single game, they're going to be a winning basketball team, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. They forced 23 Laker turnovers, had a total of 20 steals tonight, 23 Laker turnovers, and they scored 30 points off of those turnovers. This is where the Sacramento Kings offense is absolutely deadly because we know they've improved in their half-court offense with their DHO game, with De'Aaron Fox attacking the basket or running the ball through Domantas Sabonis in the high post, or all the perimeter threats that the Kings have knocking down threes. Sacramento's half-court offense has become lethal. But when this team gets out in transition, man, good freaking luck. There's nothing you can do. And when the Kings are getting defensive stops, not just forcing the Lakers to miss shots, but forcing steals and getting out in transition that way, man, this team is so much fun to watch. 21 fast break points for Sacramento. Night and day difference from their last road trip where they were struggling to score 3, 4, 5 fast break points at times. They were walking the ball up the court. Of course, De'Aaron Fox was not playing. That's a big difference. But everybody on the Sacramento Kings tonight, not just De'Aaron, was pushing the tempo. That is Sacramento Kings basketball. In addition to the fact that the Kings were getting out in transition, they were also doing a really, really good job on the glass. The offensive glass, 16 second chance points for Sacramento, only 6 second chance points for the Lakers. If the Kings are winning the second chance point battle, they are in great shape. And on top of that, they won the points in the paint battle too. They weren't killed by the Lakers in any one area, and they beat the Lakers in basically every single area. 54 points in the paint to 50 for Los Angeles. I mentioned how much Anthony Davis struggled tonight. Domantas Sabonis dominated that matchup, although the Kings threw a couple defenders at AD from time to time. I don't know if it was the second night of a back-to-back with the Lakers having played the night before. I don't know if AD just wasn't ready. I don't know if he's banged up. Whatever it may be, Anthony Davis did not look like himself tonight, and the Sacramento Kings will gladly take it, but the Kings are also very responsible for AD not looking comfortable at any point in this game. When Sacramento has won games this season, they've done a magnificent job of making their opposing team's best players uncomfortable. Think about Lauri Markkanen on opening night in Utah. Think about the first time the Kings beat the Lakers. It wasn't like Gabe Vincent struggled. That's a significant piece for the Lakers, who also did not play tonight, but he did not have a good night. How Donovan Mitchell struggled against the Kings earlier this week, and the great job that Keegan Murray did on him. Now you have Anthony Davis with just 9 points, 3 of 9 shooting from the field, 9 rebounds, turned the ball over 5 times. Like, that's not a horrible stat line for Anthony Davis. Like, it's not the end of the world. It's not like 2 points and 3 rebounds or anything, like a dreadful, dreadful stat line. But if you can hold a player like AD to 9 points, 9 rebounds, 5 turnovers, with how prolific of a player that he is, and at times he is the lifeblood of the Los Angeles Lakers, boy, you love to see that from Sacramento. Keegan Murray was the only starter not to score double figures tonight. And what was ideal about that is he missed some open shots that he's been missing over the course of this slump, and after the big game that he had against Cleveland, you would like to see him build off of that, although it was Kevin Huerter's turn tonight, so Keegan, I'm sure, will gladly pass the torch. Keegan had 9 points, shot 3 of 9 from the field, 2 of 7 from three-point range, but also, here you go, 6 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 steals. Keegan had a couple defensive possessions that were getting literal standing ovations here at Sac Yard. Fans were clapping and cheering louder for Keegan Murray and his defense at times on Austin Reeves or LeBron James or whoever it was. They were cheering louder for him than they were for when the Kings would score a basket. Like, that's how excited they were by Keegan's defense. For the second straight game, Keegan has looked fantastic on the defensive end of the floor. If he can provide that on a night where he's not scoring a lot of points, when the Kings, in this case, didn't necessarily need him to score a lot of points, hey, that's awesome. Love that. And then how about shout out to Harrison Barnes really quick? Like, we are more critical than we are positive about Harrison Barnes. And for the most part, that's deserved, right? Harrison at times has a tendency of disappearing. But I think it's important to point out that Harrison's role kind of requires him to be more passive, kind of requires him to step back a little bit. Like, when the Kings are rolling the way that they were rolling against the Cleveland Cavaliers, right? 4 players finishing in double with 20 points. When the Kings are playing that well, Harrison's job, even though he only scored 4 points in that game, Harrison's job is to kind of stay out of the way. Like, hey, I'm going to stand in the corner. I'm going to make sure my spacing is good. I'm going to make sure my defender is respecting me and not cheating and helping on every single time De'Aaron Fox is attacking the basket or somebody else is attacking the basket. Like, at times, Harrison's role as the 5th man on that starting lineup, the 5th option offensively, is to just keep the spacing, keep to the perimeter, and stay out of the way. Now, there's a fine line between playing that role and disappearing altogether. And far too often, he disappears altogether, right? But tonight, he was really, really good. 13 points, 5 of 10 from the field, 3 of 6 from three-point range. Also had 4 steals tonight. Did only grab 1 rebound. You'd like to see that higher, but it's not the end of the world. Also had a couple of assists. But 4 steals for Harrison, making an impact on the defensive end of the floor, hitting 50% of his shots. Like, this is a stat line for Harrison that's close to perfect. What would have made it perfect, other than him shooting a perfect 6 of 6 from the field or 6 of 6 from three-point range, what would have made this night perfect is a few more rebounds. But if you were to tell me, hey, like a 10 to 13 point efficient shooting night with a handful of steals and so a couple of rebounds, a couple of assists, while filling his role with that offense, if that was what Harrison Barnes could provide the Kings, if the Kings could count on that nightly from HB, it's pretty close to exactly what they need out of that position. Doesn't mean that there's not upgrades out there available and guys that maybe could be more prominent scorers or more impactful players on the offensive or defensive end than Harrison. But for who Harrison is and the role that he's playing for this team, these are the stat lines that I'm like, I ain't mad at it, HB. I can find things to be nitpicky about, but compared to the disappearing acts at times, I am not mad at this at all. So shout out Harrison Barnes for a good game tonight. Today's episode of the Locked On Kings podcast is also brought to you by Ibotta. Hey, how does a free Thanksgiving dinner sound? This year, Ibotta is here to give you cash back and help make sure that your Thanksgiving table is complete, because who wants turkey without the gravy, if you know what I mean? Big holidays mean big family get-togethers, but you don't have to spend all that money on the Thanksgiving spread without getting something in return. With Ibotta, you can get your turkey and all of your favorite sides for free, starting November 1st. So it's going on right now. For the 4th year in a row, Ibotta is giving 100% cash back on your Thanksgiving feast. Just add the offers in the app to redeem for everything that you need to make your Thanksgiving feast complete. All you have to do is shop at your favorite retailers and upload your receipt. And Ibotta gives you actual cash back. We're not talking about points to retailers that you can use on specific items and things like that. Actual cash back that you can use for whatever you want. Use it for Black Friday shopping. Use it for Christmas Day shopping. Hey, use it to go to a Kings game if you want. Ibotta is giving you that cash back for the spread that you're already going to be buying for your Thanksgiving holiday. Download the Ibotta app now and use code LOCKED to get 100% cash back on your Thanksgiving dinner. Just go to the App Store or Google Play Store and download the free Ibotta app and use code LOCKED. That's IBOTTA in the Google Play or App Store and use code LOCKED. Couple things before we wrap up. It was another good shooting performance for the Sacramento Kings, but what excites me about a shooting performance like tonight is that it can get better, but it was very repeatable, right? You look at the Sacramento Kings shooting numbers, 16 of 44 from three-point range, 36.4%. The Kings can absolutely shoot better than that. And compared to how well they were shooting as a team against the Cleveland Cavaliers a couple nights ago, it's like, okay, maybe that is more of like everybody's on, the ball is moving. De'Aaron Fox called it like the ball is humming, like everybody's getting their piece, every touch looks good, everything's going in. Those are nights that you love to experience and the Kings are capable of doing multiple times over the course of the season, but being able to string that together and relying on that to be victorious on a nightly basis, that's tough for Sacramento, even with the best offense the NBA has ever seen. So thinking about it from the perspective of, hey, look what the Kings did tonight. They still hit 16 three-pointers. They still had big shots from Kevin Huerter on the perimeter. Keegan Murray hit a big three from time to time. Harrison Barnes hit a couple of big threes for Sacramento. De'Aaron Fox hit some big threes. Like, here's a night where the three ball was a big difference maker for Sacramento. It was a solid enough weapon, but they weren't so red hot that that's the reason why they won. This is a repeatable shooting performance for Sacramento. Plus, you talk about their overall shooting 50% from the field. That is something that this Kings team can do consistently, although you're happy with the high 40s. I love the fact that the Kings shot 52 of their shots from within the arc, so they weren't just chucking up threes. They still got that 44 three-point total, which is a lot of threes taken, but it wasn't like they were over-reliant on the long ball. They still got to the rack. They still got to mid-range. They still got their shots all over the floor. It was three-level scoring for Sacramento tonight. That's the reason why their offense was once again able to put 125 points on the board. There were only 18 bench points tonight. Not the best of performances, at least scoring-wise, from your second unit. But when you're having a performance like you're getting from your offense tonight, you make up for it. Right, when the second unit has a bad night, that's when you need your starters to score 28 points, 29 points. That's when you need Harrison Barnes to give you 13. Like, really pleased, really excited to see that this is a night where the Kings don't need their bench in order to beat a team as good as the Los Angeles Lakers. They didn't need it because their starters stepped up in a major way and handled that side of the floor. And then when the bench players came in, Malik Monk still provided his floor general and assists. Keon Ellis didn't score, but Keon Ellis provided his solid defensive effort and the energy that he brings. The bench still made an impact, but they didn't have to shoulder a lot of the scoring load because the starters were doing their jobs. No Davion Mitchell again, though, tonight. Now, 2 games, not the end of the world. The Kings have literally not lost a game since Keon Ellis has gotten this uptick in minutes. So, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Why would you change it if it's working? Some people might be concerned And I understand that concern about Davion kind of falling out of the rotation. Is Davion done? Is Davion now going to be a trade piece for the Sacramento Kings? It's an okay question to ask. And Davion Mitchell, I do think, does have trade value. And who knows? Maybe he'll be someone that the Kings attach to a draft pick or something in a trade deadline deal to make that extra push to go and potentially make a deep playoff run and get that missing piece. I don't know. I still think Davion has a lot of value that he can provide the Sacramento Kings. What he has to do is the same thing Keon Ellis did. It's the same thing everybody on the Kings' second unit has to do. Stay ready. It's what Alex Len did all last season, and when he got his opportunity, he shined. Stay ready. Because at some point, Davion Mitchell will get his name called again. And if he can provide that off-night defense with some solid perimeter shooting, he might take his spot right back. We don't know. So I hope he's not too discouraged. I'm sure he's frustrated with the fact that he's fallen out of the rotation. But look, Sacramento is in the business of winning games. Sacramento is about winning right now. So they're going to go with the option that is helping them win more games. And as of right now, that is Keon Ellis over Davion Mitchell. Coming up next for the Kings, game 2 of this 6-game road trip, they have Victor Wembanyama and the San Antonio Spurs. I believe that's a tournament game. So the Kings have an opportunity to go to 2-0 in the tournament, an opportunity to win their 5th straight and improve to 7-4 on the season with the win. That's great considering they were just 3-4 after those 2 rough losses in Houston. Boy, the difference a week and some change can make, right? Kings basketball is back right now. They're playing really, really well. And now they take on a Spurs team that they should be beating, but can't take anybody lightly. Victor Wembanyama can pose some problems for the Sacramento Kings, right? The one thing that's working in the Kings' favor, I think, is that the Spurs are really poor defensively, even with the tree that is Wembanyama in the paint. The Spurs are a very bad defensive team. So if Sacramento plays up to their offensive capabilities, I feel very confident in their ability to get a win. For those of you who came here to Sac Yard to attend the first ever Locked On Kings watch party, I appreciate you so much. Got to talk to so many of you, meet so many of you. It really, truly means the world to me that you came out and supported the Kings and supported Locked On this way. You don't just have to come to Sac Yard, though, when it is an event like this. I'm going to be doing more events in the future, more watch parties, and even a live podcast here at Sac Yard. That's coming. I'll have more information about that coming up in the near future later on in the season. But you can come to Sac Yard at any time, whether it's coming for a Kings game night, coming just to chill after work, or whatever it is. Just make sure you mention Locked On when you are getting your drinks, because you'll get 10% off, and that also, of course, helps out and lets Locked On, or rather, lets Sac Yard know that you're a Locked On Kings listener. Sac Yard is your home for the Locked On Kings listener. It was great to have like a big first homecoming moment tonight here at Sac Yard. Has so much fun. Big shout out to them for putting this event on, and shout out to all of you for coming out and being a part of it. Of course, shout out to all you Kings fans watching around the world, wherever you are. Thank you for your support of the Locked On Kings podcast. Can't wait to have you join me on the next episode. Until then, my name is Matt George. You have been listening to Locked On Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.